Started recording. Okay. I don't know whether it gave you a signal or not. So the
Yeah, it showed me.
Okay. So today, let's talk about just one aspect then of the Eightfold Noble Path, and we can go into it in fair detail because we've in some ways have already covered much of it anyway.
Yes, I agree.
But
I
I,
don't think everything is just about right livelihood. I don't understand. Like, let's start from this. I can clearly see, and I think I saw it because of the practice, that nothing that I would do, would give me lasting happiness, like substantial thing in general. But yet, can some can the person still do something, still have a goal that doesn't come from desire or aversion? It's just basically, if you're not gonna be a monk, you're still trying to live within society, I guess, somewhat. So why is it bad, like, to be somebody?
all right, let's say it this way: that not all desire is bad desire, and that comes out of the concept that of the four modes of clinging, and that the four modes of clinging are also the underlying tendencies, which are also the instincts. So the underlying tendencies that we have are, when they're unchecked, give rise to all of our problems based in ignorance, based in feeling. So there are things that are worthy of attachment to. And I'll give you a few examples. One is attaching to this present moment, or the now. And in fact, there is a sutta, number 131 in the Majjhima Nikaya, that says one fortunate attachment, or one fortunate night. But when they mean one fortunate night, that's like having a night in a hotel, which is all day. But we're actually talking about it in the sense of just today. So the thing to attach to is the now, the day, or what's happening in this moment. That's worthy of one's attachment. Another thing that's worthy of one's attachment is to the Four Noble Truths, and that the expression of that can be in the sense of suffering and no suffering, so that whatever you do, your intention is to make sure that you're not harming yourself or others. Now, in regard to that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth item on the list of the Eightfold Noble Path that you're mentioning, right livelihood, that really has some interesting things in there. One of the points would be having livelihood that causes harm, and the really big ones would be having the
Like
kind
a drug dealer or gun seller.
exactly
I get these
dealing
points,
in
like, or
alcohol.
somebody who tries to sell stuff, like, to be deceptive, so in case he can sell stuff.
That's
I get it,
exactly right. That's also mentioned in that list, and what that means is belittling or I forget exactly the translation that they use, but the word bait and switch is in there. But it really has a lot to do with the kinds of jobs that the primary business is in the art of selling things. But in all kinds of business that we get into, we still seem to have to sell ourselves or sell some kind of product. The question is can we do that honestly? Now, another one that's in there, and in fact, this is something that I've had to take into consideration myself, and that is making gain with gain. And what that would mean would be like nobles who have, or wealthy people who have a lot of money, instead of just living off of the money that they have, they use that money and usury to gain benefit from it. sort of like being a loan shark or investing on the stock market or any of that kind of stuff. But most people don't even have enough money to be interested in whether or not they're going to just store their wealth or invest their wealth when in fact they have no wealth. So let us assume that you're looking at it from the position of not being wealthy.
No,
If
can I just
if if employment is something that you're wanting to experiment with, then make sure that the kind of job that you have, you enjoy doing it.
So that's the thing. That's what I want to say. Doesn't come from the making money point of view or from being desperate or whatever. I don't think I'm gonna be a monk, at least as attaching to today's decision. But I notice that I feel way better if I'm involved with the people somehow in a positive way. So that's what I mean, like when I'm saying finishing some degree where I can see myself being like a slightly positive influence to somebody, like a help. I mentioned you from that point of view, like creating modest lifestyle for me and now for the others as well. Some interconnection, interdependence, whatever you want to call
Okay.
it.
First off, I would recommend that you look up Robert Bucknell on the internet. The story about Robert Bucknell is that he was a monk at Wat Suan Mok. Oh, really in the early days. And he learned Thai language and did a lot of translation. But after he was a monk for 4 years, instead of continuing to teach the Dhamma, what he did was he became a university professor. And he still has some name and fame because of his association in the early days with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. So there's at least one or two YouTube videos of him. So I would recommend that you at least look into his story in that regard. The whole world is open to you. Just make sure that whatever you choose to do, that you do it with joy and wisdom, and that you don't hurt anyone. Other
Yeah,
than that, you see, in fact, you're asking a kind of a question that is asked in detail. You're asking it in general. The detail question is, or maybe I've got those two things backwards. You're asking in detail in the sense of right livelihood, but a more general question would be, what is right? What is the right thing to do? What is one's right action? And that we define one's right action in regard to what is one's wrong action. And then we define what one's right action is by avoiding doing what is wrong action. So that leaves right action open, and enormously open. Not
yeah. See,
nearly, by the way.
this kind of a basic counseling questions I only ask because I don't want to rush, because you've been through all of the things in your life. You saw a lot of people probably asking the same questions, but I probably misunderstand the teachings a lot. Like I thought I was supposed to stay in seclusion for the most of the time, and that's where all the happiness and whatnot, you know. But it
Let
seems to
me
me
ask
that
you this. Do you enjoy the seclusion? Because you've had quite a lot of it. Have you enjoyed it?
in and
Are you
out,
getting...
yes.
Okay. When you're, whatever you choose to do, make sure that you have available that seclusion for yourself. Don't whatever you go and off and do for livelihood or whatever like that, that you give up the benefit and the value that you gained from the Dhamma, that you continue your
No, no, no.
seclusion. But like you
Yeah,
said, sometimes you like it and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you
yeah,
feel like a nut, sometimes you don't.
I'm not gonna give up anything because, like I mentioned, this decision that I'm thinking about is not stemming from desperation or desire. It's just, I guess, moderate wisdom just to creating the lifestyle for myself instead of being in seclusion all the time. Like also making the bread for myself, you know, at some point of. of time I will have to work again.
Well, the one thing that we have to count on from the very start of the practice is the four requisites. The four
Yes.
requisites is enough
Food, house,
accommodation, which you have, enough house, enough clothing, enough food, and enough medicine. Now, for what that means is that you may not need to work full time. You might be able to work one day a week and meet your needs because you've gotten your needs down to a pretty simple place.
but it's not for a need, it's more for re-engaging, I guess. Like with something I would somewhat like, and plus I would get some kind of money, a little bit from that just to support myself. Like two rabbits in one shot, or how you call
All right, one of the things that you might consider is volunteer work.
it.
That sometimes volunteer work, especially after you're pretty good at being a volunteer, it winds up with a little bit of money. So you might want to think of it from that level. Looking for NGOs or places that whether they're any good at it or not, at least they have intentions of doing good in the world rather than just a mere intention of getting more money. So that would be also the kind of place that you would want to work for, is the kind of place that itself practices right livelihood.
Okay. But you know, I plan and I wanna finish studies, you know, in the health thing. But that's why I keep asking you, because before, maybe 2 years ago, I asked you the same question and you replied me, "Oh no, but you better don't go that way." You answered like that. So I just keep re-asking you what is so bad about it if it doesn't come from the desire or aversion.
Well, in a way, it comes from necessity for the for the
Yes.
four requisites, and also it has a bit to do with time structuring. But what I am saying, in the same way that I was saying it back then, is that don't make that your primary goal in life anymore, like you once would have. That
No,
you've
no,
got
no.
more important things to do with life than merely getting a job and working.
No, I saw probably enough that the goal itself, this is not, you know, the thing that you should follow. It's leading nowhere. But this is more like adding to right livelihood. You know, instead of, I don't see anything bad in physical works and whatnot, but I think I could be better. So in the thing I mentioned, you know, like influence people more. But yet, yeah,
Well,
I just wanna. I've been thinking about it half year, not making quick decisions because you know nothing is permanent, and one day you think like that, the other thing you might think like that. But it
how
seems
big a
stable.
town is it that you live in? I understand that where you're staying now is actually just a village. It's not a city.
Yes, it's 18,000 maybe something like that.
Okay. All right. Well, 18,000, that gives you a little bit of a flexibility, but not much.
Inflexibility in what?
In choice of where you would like to go apply for a job.
Oh, no, it's not about job. Like, really, if I need the money, it's not even about the money. Like I mentioned, if I would finish the thing I want to finish, it's probably because so many years I experimented with stuff that works for the general well-being and whatnot. So I feel I could add slightly to people, and at the same time, it could make that my job. You know, that's the angle I'm coming from. I'm not desperate for the money or job at all. It's
Well,
just
in that regard, then going back to that point of volunteering might be something that you could look into.
yeah, I guess. But what's so bad about the going university route? It's
Going for university is a really good idea. In
okay.
fact,
I thought you thought
you would be of enormous value to many of the younger students. That you're older,
I thought
wiser, more mature,
I thought you're
debonair.
totally against this kind of a like not like against, but I mean sooner or later that would lead you nowhere. That's what I thought of your opinion about it. But maybe I misunderstood, right?
Um, well, everything needs to be done in a balance. And you've already looked into it about being a monk, and you've decided that that's not the right way to go. And
Oh, okay.
and so going in a direction that seems interesting to you, like I said about Robert Bucknell, he's a good example for you to look into. You might even want to look up his email address and um, give a paragraph or two about yourself and ask him a few questions. Be surprised that he would not respond to you. He is,
The
and
website, not the website, the internet for a moment froze up, so I lost the thought you was explaining. Can you bring it back?
yes, I was explaining about Robert Bucknell for you to perhaps get in touch with
Oh,
him,
okay.
that he might have
But
some advice upon you on this regard, because it sounds very much like that's you're curious and interested in doing exactly the same thing that he has done over the course. Because he's probably in his 80s by now,
yeah, it's not
and
like,
so
I
he's
don't know.
really been there and done that. Not like us
It's not advice, I
kids.
guess. It's, I kind of, I kind of feel what is right for me. Is just I'm double checking with you since you have a bunch of experience and you live the big
Hmm.
life, anyway. So I just want to know. I know that it's not done out of the searching for some meaning or some goal because such thing it doesn't exist at all. So it's more like
Right. Hmm.
more as like a different way to earn food for yourself. That's it. More fun than I guess working physical job non-stop.
Yes, and
That's
also
the
finding
only
a way of
angle.
being of value, of giving back
Yes,
to the
yes.
Dhamma, which is
Because
something
since
that we've talked about before. Of how are you going to structure your time so that you're of some sort of value to somebody or another.
because
That's
total
why I would
seclusion
that,
becomes
that's why I would
unbalanced.
recommend the NGOs.
Yeah, what
You
I
see?
was saying, like total 100% seclusion becomes unbalancing for me. Too much is not good. I can
Well, the
see like
Buddha did not continue to stay in seclusion. That no one does. That what we're wanting to do with the seclusion is get the mind cleared out so that we can use it. You don't have to stay in seclusion. That even in Tibet, when they do it really hardcore, where they after the student is ready for it, they'll put him 3 years into seclusion, and they say, "Wow, 3 years is such a long time." And here you and I are talking about it is that yeah, but 3 years is over, and you come out of seclusion.
unless they sit in a cave, if that's what they mean by seclusion.
The caves that I know of in the videos that I've seen are actually caves that were hewn into the rock, but definitely caves.
And this also like, what's the point of it? If you have like the jhana right access, yeah, you can sit in the
Oh,
cave
well, if
for
you've got a good
couple of years.
view and you've got food, what else do you need? I mean, wow.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
a good
to each
place
his
to
own.
hang out
To
when you
each
know
his
how
own.
to.
But isn't it the same like you would get from the balanced lifestyle if you would have people that you enjoy talking with, if you have kind of a meaningful work, some sort of seclusion, that would produce the same effects for you as the cave, right?
Yes, friends. We strongly recommend friends. The Dhamma, the monks called each other friend in the time of the Buddha, and that there is a very strong concept of Kalyametta, that in fact you and I are friends, that that's our relationship, and that so friendships are important, and that the the thing is to choose friends wisely so that the friends that you have support you in the Dhamma and or you support them in the Dhamma, and you do not keep friends that want you and try to help you to stray away from the Dhamma and do things that are harmful to themselves and to others. So that means that you would not go to a bar to find friends.
Yeah, why not? It's not like you become picky, you don't avoid places or like I guess judge by the place what kind of people will be inside. You try, it didn't work,
That's
then
true.
you,
I'm making a joke. I'm making a joke. That's true. Making a
yeah.
joke.
And you know what else I noticed? Like when I'm involved, when I did work with people and, meeting somebody, the meditation works better than when I'm in total seclusion. It's like I can apply immediately, like to see how it works. Because at the end of the day, the enlightenment or whatever you want to call it happens in daily life, right? It's not on the chair or on the cushion or whatever.
Actually, um, you're absolutely correct. That in fact, um, that saying that you sent about Vipassana is what's done accidentally after the jhana dude leaves his cave.
Yeah, that's what I was reading yesterday. This is like Thailand approach specifically. Does
No,
it?
no, it's a joke.
Okay,
It's
it's a
a
joke.
joke. Yes, it's a joke. Uh, in other words, it's a joke in the sense that the jhana dude that's in the cave is too much involved with his jhana to do the vipassana that he actually needs to do there. But when he comes out of the cave, he's already got the skills of the jhana built up, so that when he comes out of the cave, he almost has to pay attention to what's going on with this sharp mind that he's got, which means he starts to do the vipassana almost naturally. That's
Yeah,
what the Buddha did. But the Buddha didn't have a clue. But Buddhist monks who do that, they've got a really good clue about, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do after I come out of the jhana. I'm supposed to clean house. If I can clean house while I'm in jhana, then I should be able to clean house while I'm walking around.
yeah, that's what I thought about. Like the mind is in such a prime condition that I read somebody wrote like when you have good shamatha or I guess the jhana, so like
Hmm.
avoiding insights would be like trying to navigate drunk elephant in minefield. It's just impossible almost. It will
And
happen.
look at that's exactly how people live their lives. They live their lives like they were drunk elephants in a minefield. And that's why they keep stepping on all of those landmines, except that the landmines are not landmines, they're mine mines.
Yeah, and on the same
but
note, even sorry, go ahead.
but, uh, uh, but the first thing to do is to wake up and recognize that we are elephants, that we are not who we thought we were. The second one is that, oh, I've got to stop being drunk and start watching what's going on. And the third thing is to wake up to the fact that the landmines that I've been stepping on are not landmines, they're mine mines already. And so that's a very good analogy that you come up with. All right. And that the jhana dudes know this only to a point is when they get out in the world that they begin to really put the practice that they've had intensely into practice. This is what they call kind of the 1-2 punch. You go off and you stay in seclusion, seclusion, seclusion. You really get your mind straightened out. And then you come out of seclusion and you start practicing Vipassana naturally. It's like
Yeah, that
a right angle turn.
is like a
But
side
you've got the
effect, right?
skill. But the Buddha says there's another way to do it, and that is the direct method, is to go directly to through Vipassana, and that you'll eventually gain the jhanas, but that the right way to do it is the natural method, and the natural method, in fact, does have um, a bit of contact with the world that would be balanced. It wouldn't be seclusion, and it wouldn't be worldly. It would be a middle path, and that we interact with the world to recognize how to become free from the world. One of the things by interacting with the world is we recognize that the world is suffering. Everything and everybody is suffering. It's hot. And by getting into it, it burns us. And so it's better to stay out of it. Now, that's something that the jhana dudes recognize immediately because they've been off into seclusion a long time and they don't want to deal with the world. It's hot.
Yeah, and plus I was thinking like how else you would develop like loving kindness and compassion if you not like engage with people once in a while, right?
Actually, compassion is done with right view, in the sense that when you're seeing the world as it is, you see it full of suffering, that's kind of an empathy. For example, if someone is angry and they're acting angry and you don't like what they're saying, then you're feeling about their anger and you're thinking about their anger and you're looking at it that way. But if you yourself are free and just observing what's going on, when you see this guy behaving and acting angry, you say, oh gosh, look how he suffers. Poor dude, he is so in pain.
Yeah.
And so this is the way that we start to do, is to see the world of suffering as a world of suffering. And to see the pain out there and to recognize you don't have to get it. You don't have to borrow it. You come out of seclusion, and the part of the seclusion is the part that got you into a state of recognizing the distinction between suffering and not suffering. Now, if you're going out into the world, you need to apply that same tool.
I see a lot
So,
of people actually disrobe and go like to, I don't know, study or do whatever, even the older monks, right? It's like a common thing.
yes, absolutely. You can
Very
think
few
of the
can walk.
Sangha of Buddhist monks as temporary, not permanent. Western people will naturally think of the Buddhist Sangha as a permanent state because of the Catholic Church and ordaining as a priest or a monk or whatever like that. But in fact, oh no, Buddhist monks are most of them are not lifelong monks. Some of them are. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and Achan Po, especially because you know Achan Po, he became a monk as a child. He was a Samanera and he became a monk so he could get a good education. But really, did he get an education? Because now he's the star of the show on Koh Samui, as well as the abbot of Wat Suan Mo in Chaya. And so he's been a monk. He's 84 now, 86. So he's been in the robes for 80 years.
Yeah, but
and
it's
he's
like
been
very few,
and he's been
very few can
ordained.
walk.
Pardon?
No, I was about to say very few can walk this path till the end, right? It's like almost like you have LeBron James
It's
in
not an
NBA,
end.
like
Wait a minute. Walking the path. You're thinking about an end. You're actually talking about a lifelong kind of thing. In fact, most don't. Westerners especially. Very few Westerners wind up ordaining for lifelong. So, in a way, you can think of the Sangha, even all the way back to the time of the Buddha, that some men ordained, and disrobing was not an issue. One guy that we know of ordained and then disrobed and reordained 7 times because he needed to work for his family. And so he would disrobe to go help his family, and the Buddha was fine with that. But that's just one example. In other cases, they would come and be a layman and never ordain. In some cases, they would ordain for a period of time and then quit. One of the favorite ways of doing it, in fact, is quite common in Thailand, and I know them here, is they ordain as young men. They stay ordained for 2-3 years, or perhaps even a shorter time. They disrobe. They go about their family's business. They stay close to that same temple that they ordained, keeping the same friends that they've had all their life. And then when they get retirement age, which would be sometime after 55, they would go back to that same temple, reordain again, and then live out their lives as grandpa, who's a monk in the temple. That's a very common way for it to happen.
okay, interesting.
Yes, so don't think that you've got to do one or the other. That the in and out game is quite possible here in Thailand with the Buddhist Sangha.
Yeah, I guess not in Thailand, everywhere, right? You can do this in and out thing.
As far as I know, that's true in Zen also. I'm pretty sure it's true in Korea, what's left of Korean Buddhism.
And I mean, this essay or book of the Buddha Dasa, Where is the Sual Moke, right? It kind of fits well in this conversation. You build your own Sual Moke, right? Since once you
Hmm.
experience what a seclusion is, right? You don't need to go somewhere.
Right. Okay. So I was eventually going to get around to it. Let me do it this way. Think of the Thai temple or what as a hospital, and that there are in a regular hospital, you'll have the following kind of people. You'll have nurses and doctors and people who work there and do things. Some of them are from the outside. Some of them have no education. Janitors, all kinds of people who help. Then you'll have people who are sick who come to the hospital because they're sick. And then you'll have people who are getting out of the hospital because they've gotten better. And then you'll have friends and relatives of those people who come to the hospital because they are sick. All of those things exist in the Thai temple, especially in the sense that a guy can go to the temple as sick, continue to have experience with his family. They support him in the temple. He gets what he needed from the temple, and then he comes out of the temple. But now in his lay life, he's going to support the temple. He may, in fact, become the chairman of the board of directors, or the guy who manages the money of the Wat. That's almost always done by one or two or a group of several laymen who will cooperate with the monks, and they will work together. But that keeps the monks from having to deal with the money of the temple. And that the guys who do that are naturally going to be the same guys that have ordained and intend to ordain again later in their own life. They're very honest about it, that kind of thing, and trustworthy. So that whole system exists in Thailand for the Thai people. Us Westerners don't quite have exactly the same thing, but if you had stayed a long, long time in Thailand, you would have become to understand this stuff that I'm telling you now, that the the amount of resources and the amount of options that are available to you here are vast. They're not as vast as if you were an ordinary person, but in some ways, by being a Dhamma dude, it opens doors. So there's a lot of ways of doing service and being of service here. Volunteer work, eventually doing teaching of the Dhamma. Many, many different things can be done. In an example of that would be assisting in doing the logistics of setting up meditation retreats, which happen. So by going and visiting several meditation retreats in your area there in Northern Europe, you can possibly make some good friends to find a place where you can be of service.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't want to do even retreats. I don't want to approach practice anymore from intense angle. I just want to go on my own pace. I don't want to make a goals anymore out of it. It's just,
Hey man, your idea of intense is somewhere over 90%. Most people's idea of intense can barely make 30.
yeah, this is like the last 4 months I really bite it more than I could chew. It's like, I thought like the more you go, the better it is, but it doesn't mean the harder you should go. Like the meditation is not like doing your best mean trying your hardest. It's not like that, right?
That's not the one's right effort. One's right effort is not striving. It's more persistent. Never mind. Start again. Come back. Come back. Come back. Come back. Take a deep breath and enjoy the moment. And that's all we have to do. Just keep doing that.
Yes, that's a good lesson. It's very weird. I guess it's just in me, but like everything that you said from the first lesson, I kind of like swallowed theoretically, but I still made the same mistakes, and now I see what you've been saying, you know. It's like if the child would see that the parents would smoke and the parents would say like, you better don't smoke because it's not good, he still would need to try, you know, to so, like
right.
everything that you say makes sense like this. Nowhere, no place to go, no, you know, enlightening to get, nothing. Take deep breath, calm the body. When the body is the calm, then insight comes, you know, it's just rest and digest.
Exactly. Exactly. The koan, no place to go and nothing to do, and the spring comes and the grass grows by itself.
Yes, yes. Well, yeah, thank you. You did answer that part very well, the right livelihood. I was doubting myself. I was thinking like maybe sooner or later I would realize how empty it is, but I already realized how empty everything it is. But that doesn't mean I'm supposed to be depressed and secluded, right? I just can re-engage from place of wisdom instead of desperation or
Exactly.
desire.
Right. Wisdom is better than desperation. I vote that. That's my vote.
No, thank you again.
Okay, John. We will
This did
see you
help.
again. Alrighty.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.